Okay, so in today's webinar, we've had a question from a customer that's really useful for everybody with a 7 and a 12 needle machine. And the 12 needle machine could be either the current HCS3 here, or even the HCS2 or the HCS1, or the 7 needle machine shown here. All of those machines here have a sewing field of 290 millimeters or 11.4 inches wide, which means that on a hat, if you divide that in half, then you can get from the center seam all the way out to about 5.7 inches to the side. So you can't get any content if you hoop normally any further past 5.7 inches on either side. On the machine behind me, its sewing field is 360 millimeters or 14.1, which means that I can get from the front to 2 inches further, which gets us pretty far past the ears. And so the question is, if I decided to buy the 12 or the 7 needle, is there a way to do that without buying any specialty hoops? So the subject of this is, can we do this with just the standard cap kit, which we're assuming is the wide cap hoop that you see here. And the wide cap hoop is a ring where you'll put the front of the cap here, and then you're unrestricted to go to either side. It's the same cap hoop that's used by the bigger machines. So let's see if we can take advantage of that with the smaller field machine. And the way our scenario is that what our customer would like to do, and it's a perfectly great idea, is that their customer wants content on the front of the hat and on both sides. And can you get that in one hooping? No, but you can take advantage of doing the front content and the side content at the same time, and even getting it further than you naturally could. So our strategy is going to be to hoop it off center, do the front and one side. Actually, we'll do the front and the right ear. And then we're going to load a different design that only has the left ear content, and so that. And since we're hooping unconventionally, we're hooping where it doesn't line up with the normal marks, how do we do this in a repeatable, consistent way so that if the customer reorders, or if we're doing more hats, that we can do this in a consistent, repeatable way so that they all look the same. So this is our strategy in doing that. We're going to pretend that we're only going to need the sewing field of the larger machine, which adds about 1.5 inches, 2 inches over here. So what we'll do is we're going to hoop this off to the side by 2 inches. So what we've done, and you can find other ways of doing this, but I've pre-marked the hat. You can see here there's a mark for the center, and then I've moved it over 2 inches, and then I've also marked 2 inches to the other side. That way, when I line this up onto the hoop, I'm in a repeatable, I can do this repeatably. I'm sure if you are selling a cap for a customer, you may want to do this a little more subtly, or with erasable chalk or erasable pen. I'm just doing this so that you can see that on the video. So I'm going to go ahead and hoop this on here like I would normally, but again, offset. So I will show you the process there. And this is, again, just a normal hooping process, but I'm hooping off to the side a little bit. Now I'm doing getting the content over the right ear, so I'm going to hoop to the left a little bit, and then I'll align it with my mark. And by aligning, I'm aligning the red mark here with a 2-inch offset mark right here. So I'm aligning these two, and otherwise I'm just doing a standard hooping job. I'm going to pull down on the material just like you would in the video where we instruct on how to do this. And while it's under tension, we'll bring the strap out from the other side. Make sure the strap is really important, especially when you're hooping the side of the hat, that the teeth of the strap are falling in line with the seam that joins the top of that hat to the sweatband. Because if it's misaligned, then that's how the design's going to sew. This strap actually functions to create an alignment guide for the material so that it's aligned with the horizontal on the machine's horizontal axis. So holding that together, I'm going to pull everything nice and tight. As we're doing this, this can shift, so we'll recheck our mark on the side here. And then I also want to bring the mark, the garment itself, maybe 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch to the left of the red alignment mark. And the reason being is that when I finally tighten the strap, is going to push this way. And you don't have to be exact because you can shift it as we're tightening this down. So I'm going to go ahead and hook the catch. And you can see that down here. I hook the catch. Again, make sure that everything's nice under tension. And my mark is a little bit past my, on my garment is a little past my red mark. And I'll go ahead and start tightening this. And as I tighten the catch, watch how this drifts so that you can actually pull and offset it so that it does align dead on with my red mark. So there we go. So my mark is now dead on the line with the red mark on the bill stop of the cap. Things to check for if you're new with hooping with the cap. Again, this is gone over in the video several times. So make sure the strap doesn't stray off of that seam. Make sure that on the front two panels, especially, you can see I kind of made a mistake here. The bottom of the panel is sticking out, so I'm going to loosen my catch a little bit, get those teeth right back on there. Again, this holds the content nice and horizontal. All right, that's done. The next thing we'll do is you want to grab the clips. It's especially important if you're sewing on the side, the two clips that come with the machine and that come with the cap hoop. And you're going to use this to clips to hold the material flat against the internal posts. You can see that post there. That holds the unsupported material. That holds the unsupported material upwards and nice and flat. You want to pull the material so that, and watch the grain of the fabric or the weave, or in this case the mesh, so that it looks nice and perpendicular and sits naturally. And then we'll go ahead and clip that in place. And I'll just do that for the other side. You don't want to over tighten it, but you definitely want to take the slack out of there. And I'm clipping the other side and we're ready to go. Okay, so the rest of this is going to be a matter of the setup on the machine. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the machine, and you're going to see that when I do, this is nice and centered up. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and put this on the machine for now, and then we'll see what happens. All right, so let's pretend the machine's all centered up. And with it centered up, you can see that the cap is skewed to the left, which is what we wanted. So now let's deal with the design. So what we have is a very simple design that representative. And what I did was I just digitized really quickly the I think I went off a little too far, which is okay. All right, so we have a design where the we have a letter A, and this is upside down because we're in cap mode, and a letter R. And I've got them 7 inches apart, and I just realized this isn't going to work because it's still not going to move over that much. So what do you think here? These are going to be 7 inches apart, and basically I'm just going to, these are, let me see, let me actually measure this real quick, and then I'll cut this part out of the video. I think I know what I did, and we'll be all right. Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, we're fine. We're fine. I'm just reading. All right, so I've got these 7 inches apart, and again, this is the content. This is the content over the center part of the hat, and the R represents the content over the right side ear, the right ear. So they're 7 inches apart, which is too far for the sewing field. So if I center the A like it should in the sewing field, you can see it's way off. But we've moved everything over 2 inches. So we want to move this over 2 inches and ignore the rectangle as far as it looking center because the hat's off center. So don't worry about that. What we're going to do is we'll just move it over so that it's just at the edge. So since we moved it exactly 2 inches over, the way to do this is just move this 2 inches over. So I'm going to go here. And first of all, this design was digitized, if you remember, so that the center content, the design start endpoints are on top of the center of the A, so that it realizes this is the center and then this is the side. That's how digitizing files can be saved, that there's a recognizable start and ending point or its own center point. It's not necessarily the physical center, but where you want the center of the garment to be relative to the content itself. So that's how I made it. And then what I can do is the Happy Machine has a positioning button called F center, and that's what's happening here. That's why it's putting the A automatically in the center. But we know that we need to move 2 inches over this way to compensate for that. So I'm going to go into the positioning screen, and first of all, I'm going to make sure that not only I've centered up with my F center button, but I'm going to hit origin set, which sets the current position at 0, 0. I want to move this over exactly 2 inches. So I'm going to scoot it over 2 inches using the arrow keys. And you can see it's already starting to march over. And I'm going to wait until this is minus 2.0 inches. And I should be correctly centered, correctly positioned. So I'm exactly 2 inches off center. And now you can see this fits within this area. And so even though we're not centered here, it is centered on the hat, or should be centered. So I was guessing correctly. I've actually got to move it back just a little bit to center this one up. But at least it's doable that we're in the center field. And the most important thing is I don't have to keep redigitizing this. I know this is center because my needle is over here. If I have my laser, I'll have my laser here. I've got it centered directly over the seam. And I can see it still fits in the field, which is great. And not only that, but the reason why I hit origin set is this number here is telling me exactly how far over I need to move it the next time I do this. So what you can do is you can just remember that. If you're just going to do this batch of hats and not ever do them again, this position will stay. This position will stay for the entire run. But once you select a different design, you're going to lose that. So you can program this in the settings field on what's called an offset, and you can tell it to move over minus 1.488. And that way, it'll the next time you sew this job, even a year from now, as long as you have it saved in here with that offset, it will remember exactly where to go. And then all you have to do is remember how you skewed the hat off 2 inches or whatever you had to move it over, and by whatever marking system you use, and that's how you do your repeatability. So now you can see that when I trace this, so I'm going to go ahead and trace, you'll see here's my laser mark here. Let's see if we can get a little bit closer. You can see that will fit in really nicely and very repeatably. And you can see how far over it goes over on the mesh. So we got pretty far back, way past the right ear if we wanted to, just by offsetting by just 2 inches. And then my content is centered here. So that's how you would sew that, and also how you'd sew that repeatedly. Now, once you're done with this, the best thing to do, like in this case, this is a two-part job where we're sewing the front content and the right ear content all at once. is we're gonna keep hooping each hat until the entire batch is done on the front and the right side. Now we're gonna do exactly, let's pretend we just did that, and now we're going to go ahead and do the other side. And we're gonna do exactly the same thing as we're going to offset this, when we marked the other side of this hat brim, or a hat 2 inches off to the other side. So all we'll have to do is align the hat to that mark. So I'll do that, is we'll hoop this. You're gonna have to rehoop them all. At least you're not gonna have to hoop it 3 times. And you can charge for 3 placements, although you're really doing the labor for 2. So here's my 2-inch offset mark. So I'll go ahead and put that over there. Line it up with a mark, just like we did before. I'll just do this at regular speed. Regular speed with the camera right in front of me. Of course, you'll want tearaway backing behind this. And then if you're sewing on the mesh, on a mesh cap, you want to digitize appropriate underlay stitches, and you'll want to use water soluble topping so that you get a really crisp looking sew out on the mesh. Start the strap, make sure it's under tension. Hook my catch. Part out the video. Check my limit. Sorry, I'm struggling on this side just a little bit more, just to get right on the mark. When I record this, I'm going to cheat and speed this part up or cut it out so it makes it deceptively easy. All right, nice and lined up. Tighten the catch. Oh, I see what's going on. All right. You can only, here's something that of note. You can only move it over. This is something I discovered and forgot to mention. You can only move it over to the point of the bill, and this is what it was. Here we go. So I picked an arbitrary measurement, but really you can be consistent. You can only move the bill over to the point where it's catching on this part of the metal strap. So that's a hard stop right there. So this may be easier, is just move it over as far as you can go. And no careful measuring or marking. And it's wherever that bill stops. That corner is now stuck right there. So that's a hard stopping point. So that's as far as we can move over. And that was the source of my trouble. So my mark must be off a little bit on this hat because I didn't have any problem with that. But anyway, that's your hard stopping point, is where the bill can't get past the base of the strap where it flares at. So we'll creep offset to that limitation, and I'll go and clip the hat. Again, just nice and straight, but more importantly, since we're now sewing on the left ear, pretending we'll be sewing on the left ear, then we'll want to clip the content here straight, or the material straight here, so the content sewing here will be sewing straight. Again, watch the grain, see if it can look almost longitudinal to pointing out to the tip of the top of the cap. That way your content's going to be aligned nicely. All right, so that's ready to go. We'll go and put this on the machine, and then we'll show you how we're going to do the other design. So the other design is going to be even simpler because we're not having to worry about any funny centers. We're just going to do what's called an offset. So I'll put this on here. It's just a simple letter L for the left side content. On there. Let's recenter and we'll start from center, or at least the machine's true center. Something's fighting me today, guys. So. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and just recenter this hat. And you can see the hat's not centered because we've offset it to this side. That's okay. All right, so let's go back to our design, and it's just a simple letter L. So we'll select that from the pattern menu because it's already preloaded. Okay, so we're just dealing with a 1/2 inch high letter. Now it's centered, but what we want to do is we just want to locate where it's going to be. So if that's my center, remember, zero it out. So hit origin set, and you're starting out at 0. So now when we arbitrarily find where that's going to be, and we can do that by hand, the convenient laser with a 12 needle makes it easy. So use your arrow keys and just align it wherever you want it to. So we'll move it over to whatever arbitrary location that needs to be. Let's say we want to put it maybe right up against the seam, and I remember that was what I was doing with crystal. So let's say that that's where we want it. So because you use the origin set button, that started out with 0, so now you have a number, whatever that number is. In this case, it says 4.728, and you can remember that. Now remember, if for this run, it's going to remember this. So next time you hit start, it's going to be there again. But let's say that you're fulfilling a dozen orders for your current order, and then come back a few weeks later and you want to know how to get back here. Then you can either write this number down and just scoot back like you did before to the extreme left. You're skewing it over, and then as far as you can, then you took another 4.728. So you can write it down the old-fashioned way. Now the other way, and you can do this for the other side content too. Remember, you can program that number. So here's the way we do that. Just remember, minus 4.728. So I'm going to go and recenter this. And then the way you do that, if you program what's called an offset, then it will remember it as long as it's in the machine. And if you want to erase it off the machine and save it, you can save it back and it'll remember that offset with it by saving it off in the pattern menu. But basically, go to your main menu and go to setting. And offset is going to be one of these tabs. I believe it's the 3rd tab over. This is your key parameters right here, like scaling percentage, pull compensation, and rotation. The second one is auto repeat. This third one is offset. So now we want to move over minus 4.278. So, and that's in the X direction. So just move this over minus 4.728. So, and I believe this is only in millimeters. So I think we're going to have to. Yep. Okay. So we're gonna have to do that in millimeters. So I'm gonna take 4.728. Unfortunately, not everything is converted to inches when we did this. So I'm just gonna take 4.728. Just multiply that by 25.4. It'll be 100 and change. So 120. So just set it to 120.1. So minus 120.1. Here, minus 120.1. Okay, and you can see now it's minus 4.728. And now, here's the magic, is I'm going to do the trace. You can see I kind of have it, it's only offset by how I hooped it. But now when I hit trace, you should see that it moves over to near that far seam on that. So I'm going to go and hit the trace button. Trace. You can see now it's lined up exactly where I had it. It goes right back to where I've offset it.
Oh, very nice. I like that.
Yeah, so it makes it repeatable. It lets you take advantage of a much wider field, even though your field is limited with your 7 and 12 needle machine. It's a great procedure. So hopefully that works for you guys, and then we'll go and leave that recording at that. And then I'll take more questions.
So I gotta, it's Stefan again, Renee. Quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
So in the scenario that you've just gone